Hey, what's going on, roleplayers? It's the Bard here and welcome back to the corner. Now, I wasn't going to do this myself, but since people have been asking for it, here it is. Yo, do you think you could do Scorpion? Any variation, but I'm really curious to see how you would make it work. Any variation? I wasn't thinking about it. When I did Sub-Zero, it was specialised. When I did Ermac, there was no variations at all, and Reptile was generalist, but it did cover all three. So it begs the question, doesn't it? Are you going to do all the variations or one very specialised variation like you did with Sub-Zero? Well, friend, because it's you, I'm going to try and do both. So when I say both, you're going to have the tools for both Ninjutsu and Inferno, but the main focus is going to be on Hellfire. Normally I do this with just the player's handbook, but there's a few nice little tweaks in Xanathar's Guide to Everything that I'd like to add to this build just because it fits so well. So these builds would get a little samey if I kept using Monk all the time, but feel free to use Monk if you'd rather use it instead of something like Fighter. Now we're going to go with Battle Master because some of the maneuvers you get are just so perfect for this build. Look at the supernatural marks or the signs of sorcery in Xanathar's Guide to Everything. A couple of these would be absolutely perfect for your Scorpion build. So we're going to use Shadow Magic as our Sorceress Origins, because it fits much better than Draconic Bloodline or Wild Magic. So Ninjutsu is a dual weapon style, so we're just going to take a dual weapon style as well. So two weapon fighting is going to be the style you'll use for your fighter, and this with the battle maneuvers is going to cover most of your primary melee needs. The way is open for you to pick up dual wielder if you want it, but the more important feat for you to get is going to be Warcaster, because you're going to have both hands full and you want to still be able to cast your spells whilst you're still using a dual weapon style. The next important feat on our list is going to be Magic Initiate, and that will explain itself shortly. I would personally pick Pushing Attack, maybe Trip Attack, and possibly Riposte for my maneuvers, because you're going to want to push the target around the battlefield a little bit. This is going to become apparent as we delve deeper into the variations. Action Economy is going to be key as always, so Quicken Spell is probably the best meta magic feat you can take. Your level 6 Shadow Magic ability is going to make Heightened Spell completely redundant, so there's no point in you taking it. If you want, you could go with Empowered Spell just to get more consistent damage from your spells and cantrips, or you can go with Twin Spell if you want to spread the damage around a little bit. Many players often struggle to build Scorpion because his most iconic attack is going to be so difficult to get hold of. However, we do have a perfect cantrip within 5th edition that we can use for it, and Twin Spell is just going to make it so much better. So gamers have been trying for years to find an alternative to Scorpion Spear, because very rarely do games bother to include some kind of harpoon that you can reel someone in with. I managed to find 3 techniques within the book that will allow you to do pretty much the same thing, however there's too much investment in many of them for them to be practical. So the first you could use is Water Whip, however you would have to go way of the 4 elements and it's a 3-level investment in Monk, it just isn't worth it in my opinion. The second would be Grasp of Hadar, which would be a 2-level investment into Warlock, and you'd need to take Eldritch Blast cantrip, so again it really doesn't suit the cause. So if there aren't any weapons we can use to do the job, what can we use to get this all important technique? Hidden away in the Druid spell list is a cantrip called Thorn Whip, and it has everything that you need to make this technique work. It's a 30-foot range, it's a spell attack roll so you have the chance for a critical hit, it does piercing damage instead of energy damage, and it pulls a creature of large size towards you with no resistance whatsoever. However, one of the best things about it is that it is a cantrip and it's not a weapon attack. So what's going to happen is you can use Quicken Spell and you can actually throw out 2 of these Thorn Whips, and then you can get a grand total of 20 foot of pull towards you. Or, if you so desire, if you've decided to take Twin Spell, you can throw out 2 Thorn Whips and pull 2 creatures 10 foot towards you. So not only have we got a cantrip that fully encapsulates Scorpion's iconic spear move, but by spending some sorcery points, we can even emulate his double spear meter burn variation of it. How good is that? So since we got a free feat, we're going to use it to pick up Magic Initiate, that's how we're going to get hold of Thorn Whip. And of course you're going to get a second cantrip of your choice as well. Maybe Guidance is probably a good one, because again, it's not all about the single character, it's about the team. So anything that you can use to help your companions is always going to be a good thing. As for your 1 shot per day ability, maybe go with Fairy Fire, it's pretty good for getting advantage, especially in your Ninjutsu variation. Or if you just need a quick heal, Healing Word is a good 1 shot that you can use if things are starting to get desperate. If these are too flashy for you, you could always go with the mobility options like jump or long strider, because they make it just so much easier for you to maneuver around the battlefield and get your target exactly where you want it. So your primary cantrips are going to include Firebolt. This is going to be the first cantrip you'll use for general ranged attacks. But the second all-important cantrip, which is going to make the build really work, especially the Hellfire variation, is going to be Create Bonfire. Create Bonfire can be used for a single instance of damage, however it does have a concentration duration on it, so you can keep it burning round after round. Your other variations and abilities are going to link into this technique by pulling or pushing a creature into a fire and having a technique that allows you to hold it there as well. So immediately we've got 2 out of the 3 parts of that variation. The only other part that we're missing is the Flame Aura. Now unfortunately Sorcerer doesn't get Fire Shield, which would have been ideal. However, Fire Shield actually works against the build, and it will all be explained a little bit later, because Fire Shield works when you get hit. So we're not going to use that. It's easy to think that it's just an aura of flame, but really what Flame Aura does is it's a damage boost. So a good damage boosting spell is going to be Haste. It's just like with our Reptile build. Haste is going to give you all that versatility. You could still cast a spell. You've got a free action to use then for an attack. You can link it in then with your bonus action to get your offhand attack for your 2-weapon fighting style. So it all links up very, very nicely. So if you're not using Create Bonfire for the Hellfire technique, you're going to want to go with Haste just to maximize the amount of attacks you're getting every round. Because like I said, it's a damage boost, and the best way to boost damage for any kind of melee character is to have more sword swings. Burning Hands and Aganazar's Scorcher aren't actually necessary for the variation, but if you want that classic Scorpion fatality, these 2 spells can leave a bunch of creatures classic Mortal Kombat toasty. So a Shadow Magic Sorcerer gets Hound of Ill-Omen at level 6, where you gain the ability to call forth a howling creature of darkness to harass your foes. So when you call this creature of darkness into being, it is only effective against a single target, but this isn't an issue because that's exactly what you want. The creature can make 1 attack against the target every round. However, attack encompasses a lot of different things. So attacks can be a weapon attack, it can be a grapple, it can be a shove. So these various techniques can help you to compound damage by using your main actions in conjunction with your Hound of Ill-Omen's actions. For example, you can come in with an attack and use your Battle Master techniques in order to trip the target. When the target is tripped, your Hound of Ill-Omen can go in for a grapple. Now with that creature grappled and prone, it's not going to be going anywhere, and you'll have lots of advantage against it, and it will have disadvantage on any attack rolls. Your creature of darkness can also use the shove action, as it can use this instead of an attack, so it can push things into environmental hazards, or more likely it's going to push things into the area where you've cast Create Bonfire or perhaps Firewall if you've got that spell. Your minion will be able to move your target around the battlefield so that you don't have to spend your actions to do so you can get a better advantage when you go on the offensive. Furthermore, your creature of darkness can grapple an opponent using its attack action. This allows it to hold it in the continuous damaging effects from your spells, like Create Bonfire and Wall of Fire. And because grapple doesn't require the creature to move into the target space, it can hold the creature in the area of effect without being in it itself. Spells like Create Bonfire, for example, do damage when the creature first enters at the beginning of each turn. However, if a creature ends its turn there, it also takes damage again. So with your creature of darkness, you can use it to hold the creature there, and if it can maintain the grapple to the end of that creature's turn, it will take a second instance of damage. On top of that, any creature that is within 5 feet of the creature of darkness is going to get disadvantage on any saving throws against spells you cast. So if it's holding it in a spell that you've cast, not only is it going to be taking extra damage, but it's also going to get disadvantage and not be able to save as often. So Ninjutsu encompasses all of your physical attacks and techniques. By going with Fighter, Ninjutsu becomes a lot more than just a bunch of extra attacks. Pushing attack and trip attack are very good for spacing and keeping control over the battlefield, but of course as you gain more levels in Fighter you get to have more maneuvers. Riposte is excellent, especially if you're combining it with your Hound of Ill-Omen, because if you've managed to keep the creature prone and it's going to make an attack against you, that attack is with disadvantage, which means it's likely going to miss. If the creature does miss you, you can use your reaction to get a counter-attack against it. Also, maneuvers like Rally and Commander Strike are welcome in any adventuring party, but they can also be used to give these additional advantages to your Hound of ill-omen as well. If your minion is running low on health, then Rally can offer it some much needed temporary hit points. Also, Commander Strike is really useful because if you need to get in melee with a couple of different creatures at the same time, you can concentrate on one creature and your minion can concentrate on the other. By doing this and using Commander Strike, you can still have one attack and get an additional attack from your action surge as well as an additional attack from your 2-weapon fighting. The attack that you forego can be used by your Minion of Darkness. An attack can be a grapple, or it can be a shove, or it can be just a plain weapon attack. Ninjutsu doesn't rely on any spells in order to make it work. But again, you can use haste to your advantage if you've got that spell in your arsenal. If you want some consistent damage though, you can use something like Shadow Blade. This is a good spell because it's not physical, it does psychic damage. As with many spells, it does more damage the higher up level slot you use. The weapon can be thrown and you don't take any penalties for doing so, and if you're using it in an area of dim light or darkness, you get advantage on the attack roll. This is a spell that seems to be tailor-made for a fighter sorcerer, especially one that uses shadow magic as a sorceress origin, because the shadow sorcerer gets dark vision at its first level. Furthermore, with a fighter's extra attacks, their action surge, attacks of opportunity, and the battle maneuvers, Shadow Blade can make Ninjutsu one of your most powerful variations. So Misty Step should be your go-to short-range teleport, and as a spellcaster you want to take any other spells that you think are going to be useful for the party, because at the end of the day it's not purely just the character, but you want to be as versatile as you can in all situations. We had to make a concession on Fire Shield, but as I said before, it's really not going to be of that much value, because if you're using your minion to create disadvantage, you're going to get missed, and if you get missed, the Fire Shield doesn't proc anyway, so it's no great loss. If you absolutely must have the Flame Aura, however, there are a few things you could do, but the concessions have to be made as well. So you could go Wizard or Warlock, and if you went Warlock you'd have to go specifically with the Fiend Patron in order to get hold of Fire Shield. But by doing that you sacrifice Sorcerer and you sacrifice the meta magic options. Instead of going Fighter you could go with Barbarian. If you went with Path of the Storm Herald and went with Desert Storm Aura, you'd be dealing fire damage in a decent radius every round. But of course the problem with that is you can't cast spells whilst you're in a rage. If you're not worried about being a human character, perhaps you could go Tiefling instead. The built-in Hellish Rebuke is always nice, and you could go with something like Flames of Phlegethos if you can afford to have an additional feat. The bonus to Charisma is nice. Being able to reroll ones on fire damage is ideal, but the discount Fire Aura isn't really very good because you're trying to deal damage with only 1d4 every time you get hit, and again, as we said, if you're doing your job correctly, you don't want to be getting hit. As with any character build, however, feel free to add parts that you think are necessary and take away the things you think don't work. Hopefully you enjoyed this Scorpion build. I always have a lot of fun making these, and it's especially that much more enjoyable when people are actually starting to ask me for them as well. So thank you very much for that. If you liked the video, please leave a thumbs up. If you've got something to say on the subject, then I'd like to hear about it down in the comments. If you're not yet subscribed, get over here and get subscribed and get notified every time something new pops up from the channel, and I will see you guys next time at the gaming table.